Greetings, viewers. This is CP666 signing on for a video of this Compaq Presario 1650. Now, the last several times I've worked on laptops, the video hasn't been nearly as quick as I would have hoped to. So, considering I'm running out of videotape here, hopefully this one turns out quickly. But it may not. It may actually turn into a bust because I tried putting this hard drive, which came out of the system, into an Ultra Bay adapter for a ThinkPad T61. And it wouldn't initialize it. In fact, it failed the power on self-test with an Ultra Bay drive initialization failure, which, I don't know about that. It did spin up, though. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in, and we're going to go ahead and install Anti-X Linux on this, since my experiment with it on the Tecra 8000 up there was not so great. We'll see how it goes on this one, which is still a Pentium 2, but I think it might be a little bit better of a system. And I would wager to bet that a lot of the issue has to do with the video chipset in that Tecra 8000, as well as some of the issues that it's got. Either way, if you want to actually take the hard drive out of one of these types of systems, you have to pull the palm rest off, and there's 4 screws to do that. Be careful of the one that's somewhere. It's either around here or it's around here. It's somewhere over here. I don't remember exactly where it is, but there's a screw that goes into the side somewhere. Okay, so there's 3 screws here, 1, 2, 3, and then I think it's either on this side or it's on this side, but there is this screw as well, which is a lot longer than the others, so you have to be careful of that. This actually has an aftermarket battery in it. Anyway, and then there should be 4 screws, or if the previous owner of your machine has taken as good a care of that one as they have this one, you have 1 screw to take out. And then you got to pull off the 2 side brackets, remembering which side they came from and how they were installed, and then you can replace your drive. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and put this all together, and we'll power it up and try and install Linux on it. Yeah, the other thing too is you want to be careful of this ribbon cable. Now, it's pretty rigid, but that doesn't mean a whole lot, and you could tear it. Same deal with this ribbon cable right here, which attaches to the palm rest. And when you do that, well, you'll have a real problem on your hands. Been there, done that. And I think I invented new swear words that day, so yeah, don't do that. Anyway, so now that we got this drive back in place, I'm going to have to put the 1 screw that it came with back in place, and that's this screw right here. Put the 1 screw back in, then I can put the palm rest back on, and we can continue on. Okay, so first thing is first, let's verify the symptom. This thing does not boot from its onboard hard drive. But that it does actually see the drive. Now this could take a while to post because I think it's got to test all of the memory. So I'll come back here in a second when the message that we're looking for is popped up, or if it does something else. And here's our symptom. I don't know what caused this, but there's an issue somewhere. So I don't know if my keyboard is really working, but I want to reset the system and try and boot to the CD that I've just put in the drive. Of course, I'm assuming the optical drive even works. So trying to get Linux on this thing seems to be a total heaping of fail. It doesn't seem to want to boot any of my Linux disks. So we'll just put Windows 98 on it. And I think this is going to be my kernel X experimentation machine, but I'm not sure just yet whether that will happen or not. I guess we'll find out. I really hate Windows 98, but it's got a Windows 98 2nd edition license code on the bottom of it, so why not? I mean, it's better than Windows Millennium Edition. Yeah, I'm starting to question whether or not this hard drive works. I actually deleted all of the partitions that were on the drive because it didn't seem that there was anything that was really valid on it anyway. And I let it recreate all of the stuff on its own, let it sit in format overnight because it was going to take a while since it's a 60 gigabyte hard drive, at least in theory. It might not be the case for reasons I'm about to explain here. But this is a completely fresh format, and it runs ScanDisk, the first thing after doing all of this information, just to make sure the drive is okay. It's something that Windows 98 always does. And here it is wanting to fix stuff. What's actually happened is it's complained about the backup copy of the file allocation table. So, well, I'm feeling bold, so we'll just skip the undo. We'll see what happens. It might take a while because it has been sitting here taking quite a while to do all of this. Might almost be prudent to just go back to bed, but anyway. So the hard drive could be bad. I have noticed that there is apparently no hard drive activity indicator on the system anywhere, which is odd for a system of this age. Or the issue that we could have is actually one of disk geometry. And what I mean by that is that there is a difference between the way the drive is set up, its partitions, and in particular its partition sizes, and it clashes with the representation of the disk that the BIOS is presenting to the operating system, and that can cause all kinds of screwy problems, especially if the partition that you are trying to access or format or whatever is larger than what the logical representation of the drive can possibly allow for. This is a big problem. You see, there are a couple of different limits, and I'm not going to mention the 2 GB limit of the FAT16 file system, because that's a completely separate problem. The first limit was at 528 megabytes or thereabouts, and that was the limit of the traditional cylinder head sector, or CHS, translation. Then we came up with something called logical block addressing, or LBA. And the first generation of LBA could only address drives up to, I believe the limit was 8.4 gigabytes. And I've got reason to believe that this system can only address drives up to 8.4 gigabytes in size, but I haven't verified that. So I might have to. This might take a very long time. You can see it's already still at 0%, which again might either indicate, usually that would indicate that there's a problem with the drive. It shouldn't take this long. But I'm starting to really wonder if there's a geometry misrepresentation here, and I might have to do something about that. Okay, so we've determined a couple of things. Number one, the disk geometry is being accurately represented to the operating system, which is interesting. And number two, apparently there are issues with this drive, or maybe Windows 98 just can't handle installing onto a 60 gigabyte hard drive. So I had to change the partition size to about 4 gigabytes, which is more than good enough for what I'm ever going to do for this machine anyway, so I don't plan on installing a whole lot, if really much of anything. So now I gotta do this installation, and I'm not gonna make you sit through the entire installation of Windows 98, so. Well, here's a new one, even for as crappy as Windows 98 is. Check this out. The primary IDE controller is working just fine. The secondary one sure isn't, and what's more, it has also killed power to my optical drive. Now that is really trying. I'm telling you what. So, I'm going to reboot the computer and see what happens. I don't think the results are going to be very good. And as you can see, once again, I gave up on Windows. Windows 98 installed. But guess what? As soon as it got to the final portion of setup, the optical drive was no longer working. And what had happened, I don't know, actually I really don't know what happened, but primary IDE controller was working fine. Secondary was not. I think you actually saw that. And it was so bad, in fact, that it broke the optical drive. I couldn't eject it. It turned the power off to it. I had to shut the system off completely. Really, it was kind of horrible. And, to top it all off, there were no drivers. So what I did is I have a slightly older version of Anti-X Linux that I have now installed on this system. And we'll see what happens. Probably not going to boot because my life is a comedy. Remember that it didn't install on the Tecra 8000 at all. Try to get the boot floppy out of the floppy drive. Okay, well that's a little more promising. So we'll see if it works. Okay, well, it actually worked, unlike the Tecra. But wow, that's really slow. Let's just notice, this thing's got a very weird, very strange amount of installed memory. 148 megabytes? I'm not sure. I think it's got 128 megabytes on a module, and I don't know what else it would have. Get up to 100, that's 20 megabytes there, and I can't imagine it's got 20 megabytes on the motherboard. 16 megabytes maybe, 32 megabytes maybe, but nothing else. So I think I'll conclude the video with that. Just a short little thing. It does run a little better now that it doesn't have to load off of the CD anymore, but I'm sure that trying to go to YouTube or trying to do anything really isn't going to work. I think this thing actually has its own little built-in YouTube player, though, so you probably don't have to do that. We'll see if we do have one. If I remember right, it did. This is the same version of Linux that is installed on the other system. Well, if it does, I don't see it. So, yeah, SM Tube, there it is. You could do poor man's radio player. But let's try SM Tube first. Let's see what happens. It's running in 800 by 600 mode, which I think is the native resolution of this panel. So I'll come back when it's loaded, because it might take a while. Okay, so I actually just now came to the realization that I can't do this, because there's no Ethernet hardware on this system. And I can't actually find my little Zircom RealPort card, the little orange thing. It was in the Tecra 8100, it's not there anymore. So I have no idea where it could have possibly gone at this point. So I think I'm going to call it a video at that. So thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. The system is doing something useful now. Sort of. Sometimes it does some weird stuff. Like, I don't know what it just did there. This is CP666 signing off, and I hope to see you next time. Till then, wow, this thing is really not doing too well. I'm going to call it a video there. Usually I let the machine turn off. Maybe we might be able to do it. I don't want it to take too long. I'm having difficulty moving the mouse, too. This mouse is really not working all that well. Yeah, I don't think you really need to see all this. See, it's running in higher resolution here for some reason. I don't know why that is. So I can't see half the things that it's saying. It's just brilliant. Is it going to shut down? The fact that it says no also loaded tells me that there's no sound, so... Oh, I know what we can do that I didn't do beforehand. So give me just a second before we sign off. This thing, at least in theory, has disc playing capabilities while it's turned off. Which it looks like it indeed does, as you can see there. Reject the optical drive. We'll grab a music CD. Put it in place and see what the system does. Not really sure how this works. Probably don't want to do too much. There's no real status display for me to look at. Wonder if it's working. Give me just a second here. Well, it doesn't seem like I'm actually able to get that to really do anything, so either I'm doing it wrong, or this optical drive just doesn't support. Because it is an aftermarket optical drive, it doesn't support the disc play functionality. So, oh well. That's it for the video. Should probably pull the price tag sticker off.